Model in Turkey is better for sustainable system. So that's why in this area we are actually transferring the know-how from Turkey to Germany. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Engin.
Teşekkürler.
Thank you, Murat Bey. I'd like to share the presentation our company prepared before, and as our slides are in English, I will continue in English.
Some brief information about the German wind energy market, as we come from Germany, and also from our point of view, some information about the Turkish wind energy market, and compare both markets with each other. First of all, I would like to shortly introduce our company to you. EnBW is one of the largest energy companies in Europe and the third largest in Germany. We are active in the whole value chain from generation until sales in Germany. We realized 20 billion euros turnover in last year. We have 5.5 million customers and approximately 20,000 employees. So this is our current total installed capacity. As you can see, we have mainly thermal power plants installed, nuclear, gas, and coal-fired power plants. But the renewable energy part is also a significant proportion. And if you break down the renewable energy part, you can see hydro is the main part, but also we already have wind onshore and wind offshore in Germany. And we hope that this part, this proportion of wind will increase in the upcoming years, in both markets, in Germany and in Turkey. So first, I would like to highlight the market outlook of Germany until 2020, and then I want to show you the same outlook for Turkey and to compare both markets. Here you can see that the German wind energy market is already a developed market, and it is expected that wind energy is going to increase until approximately 50 gigawatts until 2020. So it is really a huge market where we are active. Here the red line shows the cumulative capacity, and the red bars the yearly additional capacity in gigawatt. So what is the situation in Turkey, or what is the expectation in Turkey for the same period? And here you can see that it is expected that Turkey will reach up to 9 gigawatts installed capacity in wind, despite the government targets of 20 gigawatts until 2023. By the way, this is taken from Bloomberg, so the source is Bloomberg. However, our own German expectations and forecasts for Turkey coincides with the values of Bloomberg. So these are the outlooks for both markets where we are mainly active. And here I would like to highlight and show you some market characteristics for both markets. First, in Germany, the feed-in. The feed-in in Germany is still high. It was higher in the past, but it is still high. For example, we have 9 euro cent approximately for wind onshore, and up to 19 euro cent for offshore, but we know that it will be steadily decreasing in the upcoming years. The capacity factor, relatively low and medium, not as high as it is in Turkey, but the projects are feasible as the feed-in is very high, as we know. And the returns, I think this is a crucial point. The returns in Germany are safe, they are foreseeable, reliable, with low risk. And this is very, very important for an investor as the feed-in is granted for 20 years, so this is a very long period. So you have little risk in terms of returns in Germany. And the competition environment in Germany, we have many actors. We have big market players, we have small market players. However, we do not face tough competition. It is not a competitive market, as there is no auction yet. So the same market characteristics for Turkey, the feed-in, from our point of view, from a German investor's point of view, the feed-in in Turkey is sufficient, is barely sufficient. However, if you can benefit from the local content, I think we believe that it is attractive. The capacity factors are high, significantly higher, 30 to 35% in Germany, up to 20%. The returns, I think this is again important. In Turkey, the returns are safe, however, with an uncertainty after 10 years, as the feed-in is only valid for the first 10 years. And so there is an uncertainty regarding returns in Turkey. And the competition, we all know how the situation is. There are so many actors, so many players, serious and non-serious market players in Turkey. And it is very competitive, especially to obtain a project license. So as you can see, the market characteristics vary from each other, so the different markets, but we are active in both markets, and I want to show you what are our targets in both markets until 2020. Our goal in Germany is to reach 1,000 megawatt wind, coming from 200 megawatts already installed. And if we reach our goal, then it would correspond to a market share of 2%. And we believe that this is feasible, this is realistic. And in Turkey, we aim, together with our partner Borusan, we aim to realize, build up a portfolio of 1,500 megawatts, coming from 110. And if you consider that the expected market size will be 9 gigawatts, then I think it is obvious that our target is very ambitious and very tough in Turkey. Here I would like to show you our current wind portfolio. I only highlighted the wind projects. I excluded the hydropower plants. You can see we have 2 power plants in operation, 5 under construction, and 1 big power plant, Saros, in northwestern of Turkey, is still in planning. And we hope that this will increase in the next years. So the question arises, of course, why do we invest in Turkey? What are the main reasons? And in order to invest in a market, there must be some criteria to be fulfilled. The first one is clear. You need a demand. You need a growing demand. And in Turkey, we have an economic and electricity demand growth. It was higher in the past, we know, but the rates are still reasonable and good compared to other European countries. So this criteria is fulfilled. The high potential, everybody knows. We have the best wind resources in Europe, this is clear. But I guess the third point is the most important point. Why many companies are here. You need the commitment of the lawmakers in a country to invest. So we think that at least the ministries and the government are committed to boost renewable energy and wind energy. They are willing to promote wind energy, and this is, of course, crucial. To the problems I will come later. And lastly, what we also need is a well-functioning wholesale market, an established wholesale market or a power exchange. And in Turkey, we know this is still in progress, under development. We hope that APH will be established very soon. So the criteria are more or less fulfilled. But now I think this is my most important slide. I want to show you that we face some challenges and obstacles both in our home country, in Germany, although the market is developed, and we also face some challenges in Turkey. First, I would like to show you the biggest challenges we face in Germany. The first one, this is really the main shortage, the bottleneck in the German wind market, is finding free land, securing the land for your project. You have to consider Germany is a densely populated country with half the size of Turkey, with a high population, and it is not easy to find land and to get the permits where you can realize your project. This is the main challenge. And the local authorities, the municipalities, have the right to restrict the construction of wind energy power plants on certain land. The next one is similar to the first one, but from another point of view, the social resistance. What we face here in Turkey regarding hydropower plants, we have this situation regarding wind. So the Germans in general are in favor of renewable energy. They want renewable energy to increase. Everybody likes clean energy as long as they are not personally and directly affected by a wind power plant, which can be very close to their homes, just 300 meters. This is determined by law. You can install a wind power plant. Then the people are not tolerant anymore. They complain about sound pollution, and they feel disturbed by the shadows of the wings and so on. And this is not easy to handle. And they can go to courts, and sometimes they win the cases, which means for an investor, you have to stop your project. And what we learn from this is you need the support of the local people before realizing a project, similar to that what we have here in Turkey regarding hydro. You need their support. You have to understand what they want. The third one is what I just mentioned, the changing legislation in Germany. The German government intends to establish a bidding and auction process for new wind or for new power plants by 2017. So in Turkey, we know all the problems what we have with this auction and bidding process and have a competitive environment. But for Germany, it will be an entirely new experience when this is established. Of course, for sure, the projects will be more difficult to realize. The costs will higher, and maybe we will also face some delays in the project realization. So these are the challenges we face in Germany, and now what kind of problems do we have in Turkey? Of course, everybody is talking about it, but I have to mention it as this panel is about the wind energy market from a foreign point of view, foreign investors' point of view, the regulatory uncertainty with high administrative red tape, bureaucracy, and so on. So we face this problem that not all the ministries are in line, they have different views, it is not in a harmony, and also the bureaucratic burden is high, and the administrative process can be very complex, unfortunately. What we expect is that, all these procedures are more harmonized with aligned views on the market and simplified, of course. The second one in Turkey is the grid constraints. Grid constraints prevent the fast development of wind energy in Turkey. We believe that this is the main shortage in Turkey. And the improvement, the expansion of the grid is crucial in order to have more access of wind energy to the grid. The third point is the tender process. It was also discussed in the previous panel discussion what will happen next year. And so as an investor, as a foreign investor, we have to wait until the government issues new licenses, because this is our job. We need the licenses. And we know in the past it was really difficult and not well handled. And so the question is, what will happen next year? Can we really apply for new projects? And when will be the auction and so on? We know that 1,500 masts are installed and everybody wants to apply for projects, so it can be really terrible. So this process is unclear, and we need a planning horizon at least. The last one is the feed-in tariff uncertainty. As I mentioned, in Germany we have 20 years, in Turkey we have only 10 years, and from the financing point of view, you have to deal with the price risk after 10 years. And this is also a problem we face in Turkey. So these are the challenges and market barriers. What I wanted to show is, despite a well-functioning, highly developed market, wind energy market in Germany, we have significant problems to achieve our goals. So I think it is a bit understandable that we have similar problems and challenges in Turkey. So final remarks from my side, then I want to finish my presentation. We believe that with the current pace, it will hardly possible to achieve the government target. We expect 9 gigawatts until 2020. But we also believe that there is always room to improve the business environment for foreign investors. So it is not that bad, but it can also always be a bit better. But I think the last one is really important. At least the Turkish government and the Energy Ministry, they are all aware of the potential, they are all aware of the need of wind energy to tackle the current account deficit problem in that country. And we believe that they set the right framework. Thank you.
Karşılaştırmalı sunumu gerçekten.
Thank you very much. It was a really nice presentation for us as the public institutions. We are really aware of the situation, and we are trying to make the regulatory changes to help in this regard. Maybe you have realized in many panels the representatives of the public institutions are very active in the discussions. Yes, there's an uncertainty, but how can we improve this? How can it be easier? How can we make it more feasible? How can we provide more convenience for the investors? We are not fixed. We are improving. Germany has made this, but they lost a considerable amount of budget. But they are changing their system. Spain has changed their system, and they made a radical change in Greece as well. But the changes there did not help the investor to get the return they expected. And we are more cautious looking at those examples. We are more conservative in our steps towards this aim, so that the investors in Turkey will not have the same problems. So we are trying to be protective for our investors. And another foreign investor is here. Mr. Şener will give us some information as a representative of Res Anatolia Holding and how they went into Turkey's market and how did they develop. And we will also see the problems they faced at their initial stage when they entered into Turkish market, and after having adapted to Turkish situations, we think there's good potential for investment in Turkey. Now I'd like to give the floor to Şener Bey.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll do my presentation also in English, so to make it easy on the listeners, also the translators, right after lunch. So it's always hard to speak after lunch and the second day of a conference when a lot of things have already been discussed, and try to not to repeat same things, but unfortunately I haven't been following much of the presentation, so hopefully there's not going to be too many overlaps, the ones you already seen. I'm a business developer for Res Anatolia Holding as of today, and then what I'll try to do is I'll try to explain how we got into Turkey, what attracted us into Turkey, and then how do we see the market as of today, and then what do we see the market is, where do we see the market is going, and then I'll wrap it up and try to give you what the pros and cons of the market from our perspective. So a little bit of commercials. As Res Group, we're operating in almost 5 different continents, and with 1,000 people. We so far developed about 7,000 megawatts. This is on the wind, and our headquarters in London, UK, and we also have operations in Germany, Sweden, France, as well as North America, Asia Pacific, and we've been in Turkey since 2009 in Istanbul. Out of these 7,000, we have actually keep the ownership of 750 megawatt. We're currently operating ourselves. And we have 168 megawatts of licenses in Turkey as of today. So what attracted us into Turkey? That was a EPDK, EMRA rather, decision in 2006, middle of 2006, said that, okay, they're going to be collecting wind applications in March of 2007. So then that date was delayed up to October, and then once the regulators made some changes and tried to clean up some of the problems within the regulation, it's been delayed a couple times, but then finally decided about 15 months later, the first announcement, they said that they're going to be collecting applications in 2007 November. So this is a very famous date for the wind industry, and that particular date there was like 80,000 megawatt of applications in one day. So how did we see? I mean, that was on the application side. Okay, we saw that there is going to be some applications. That's good. And then as of 2008, how do we see what the market is going to do? So we'll turn to TEAS, latest TEAS report at the time, and then the report said with the low case in terms of peak demand growth, the low case is they were predicting 6.3% increase over the next 8 years. And when you look at your their high case, it's about 8%. So we said, okay, on average, the market could grow 7%, which means that we're going to have to add 2.5 to 3.5 gigawatt every year for the next 8 years. So, as I said, the market was there too. So what about the political or the policy targets? So that document, based on the government's planning department, there was a strategy document published mid-2009. Within that document, there was a special section related to the resource usage. And then in there, the wind has been told that by 2023, wind capacity is going to be increased to 20,000 megawatts from almost zero. So that actually a very good sign that you could see the political spirit that is going to be supporting industry. It's never been in Turkey before. So, which means that we had to add in 2,000 megawatt every year for the next 15 years, 14 years. So, there's 3 ingredients, like I said. I mean, there is market, there was the application process already being completed, and then there is the political spirit. So we decided, we haven't had any applications. By the end of 2009, we decided to purchase British Petroleum's portfolio of assets. There was 6 projects, total of 600 megawatts. So we acquired entire portfolio from them and then entered into Turkish market, and we've been established and operating in Turkey as a fully Turkish company since 2009. Since then, what happened? I mean, there's a few messages in this figure, you've probably seen all this already, but one is there's about 10,000 megawatt of capacity, or the licenses have been granted so far. So out of this, there's 5,400 of those is actually under development, trying to complete their permitting process or zoning processes. And then 1,100 is currently under construction. And then since 2006, actually, there was only 30 megawatts of capacity in 2006. We have added 30, current actually operating fleet is about 3,400 megawatts. So these numbers are actually based on July 2014 TWEC, which is the organizer of this conference, official numbers. So, and it's, we might be a little bit off, but it's what it is currently. One other message here is though, and when the new electricity law came into effect in 2013, there was a provisional article saying that if you cannot complete your permittings or zonings or anything, or you haven't even done anything on your projects and you're willing to return it, we're gonna, your licenses, we're gonna return your letter of guarantees if they return it within a month of the publication of the law. So there's 800 megawatt actually returned following that, and still it's not included on the 10,000 megawatt, and those capacities has actually been waited to be grabbed, so it's kind of blocked the whole grid currently. So what other messages in this figure is actually, we all know that by 2023, we're not going to be able to meet our 20,000 megawatt. That's everybody in the industry in Turkey knows. That means we have to build 1,900 megawatt every year by 2023, which is not possible. That doesn't mean that we have to tender them or hand out the licenses. It means that we have to actually build all those turbines every year, which is not possible. So, which there's a good news and a bad news. Another bad news is that every turbine we don't erect, which means that we need to pay fossil fuels to generate our electricity for our electricity needs. So, and that's not sustainable in terms of the budget purposes of the government, and we have seen that the last quarter of this year, the tariff rate increased about 9 to 10%. So we started seeing some impact of that. And then the good news, though, is that we have 3,400 megawatt, and then it's been 30 megawatts in like 2006. So there's definitely a momentum, even though it's slow. The regulators are working hard to clean up the environment so that we can work, and then the financial institutions are getting up to speed and try to fit their strategies into Turkish needs. And then the investors also very motivated, which have been adding almost 500 megawatts on average every year. So what do we see from now? This is again TEAS numbers from the latest TEAS numbers actually. When you look at it, annual peak demand is expected to grow 5.5% for the next 8 years. And that's kind of in line with the latest, a couple days ago, I think the finance minister was talking about 2.5% increase growth actually for Turkey, and electricity when you consider 1.5 to 2% increase over the country's growth. 5.5 is not too off base, looks like it. That means that we have to add 3 to 4 gigawatt capacity every year for the next 8 years. So that's still a good environment to be in terms of energy player. And one of the question is for a foreign investor, is it liberal? Is the market is liberal enough that you can access and build capacities? When you look at the last, between 2001 and 2013, there was about 32,000 megawatt additions, and almost 92% of that is done by the private companies. So it's a very good sign in terms of a market. And you look at 2013 alone, we have 7,000 megawatts included. And then 97% of that has been actually added by the private companies, and almost 10% is actually wind additions in a single year. So that's very good sign. And if I wrap it up, when you look at the pros and cons of the market, it's interesting to see that the market is looks like at grid parity and not relying on feed-in tariff too much. I mean, when you look at 2014 applications, we don't have the 15 ones yet finalized. When you look at 2014 applications, only 25% of the operating assets actually applied for the YECDAM, in other words, feed-in tariff. And then, which means that market is growing without a policy risk. So they can't take something you don't even have. So that's a good sign for us, at least, but we'll come back to FIT later. And then, like I said, 90% of the additions done by the private companies. That's a good sign. And then we have a balancing power market, which has been running pretty good and smoothly, no problems. And with the addition of EPIASH and becoming very active on the market, it's going to increase the depth and the liquidity of the market. So that's going to be a good sign also. So those are the pros. And then when you look at the World Bank's latest numbers per capita electricity consumption, it's actually in Turkey, although it's been increased 30% between 2006 and 11, still we're below world average, and we're almost 50% off the European per capita consumption levels. So it's a big market to grow, actually, and it's still a good sign. And then the strategy document that I was talking about in my earlier presentations, there's the section was also highlighting the resource usage plan section, also highlighting that the natural gas share is going to be dropped below 30% of the overall installed capacity. So, and hydro, we know that Turkey has almost reached its potential capacity on the hydro. That's a good sign for a wind and a solar also project developers in Turkey. So those are the good things. How about some risks? I mean, one of the biggest risks, I mean, for any foreign investor is the geopolitical risk. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to get in or send troops on the ground without feeling safe. So for this particular reason, even though we've been in Turkey since 2009, we also canceled a few projects ourselves because of the geopolitical risk. So hopefully that's going to be resolved in the next few months. Another problem is, like everybody talks about this, it's a stop-and-go tender process. That makes very hard for a foreign investor to plan ahead the capacities or the budget and financing purposes, because you don't know where you're going to allocate your money. Because a company like us, operating in 5 different continents, I mean, we're always in a race with different regions trying to bring more money to our region, but without having a clear indication when we're going to need that money, it's very hard to operate. So, and then what do you do as a newbie in the market? If not already established, you go for a portfolio, or try to create your own portfolio, buying different assets. But that's very hard because of the transaction costs in the market. I mean, it's a really hyped up market. And then if you try to pay those transaction, the license transfer fees, then it becomes very problematic on your cash flow. So, but people still do that, and then a lot of the big foreign investors in Turkey, they actually have Turkish partners. That's how they actually get into Turkey. EMBW also indicated. So it's that's very hard problem to solve for a foreign investor. And then the non-recourse project financing, it's the only one I know is maybe Tulayanam is going to be talking about it. They're the only ones who has done this in Turkey. And still, I haven't seen the second project. We're working on it, actually, on our one of our projects right now. It's been a while. We're trying to resolve it, but it's not a smooth process for Turkish, in the Turkish market for a foreign investor. And then the alternative is you either go for the limited recourse or you go for a balance sheet financing, which for a foreign company, it's almost next to impossible to do when you're getting into a new market. So, and the problems that's actually why we can't have the non-recourse, because, I mean, I said that there is no policy risk for the FIT, but here, when you look at it, low FIT and without any inflation adjustment, it actually doesn't provide a positive view for the cash flow. And then alternative is long-term PPA. That's not available in Turkey either. I mean, the longest you could get is either 12 months or 15 months, maybe, if you push it too hard. And then there is another issue with the imbalance cost, and that we, as the wind or the renewable project developers face, an imbalance cost could reach up to 4 or 5%, and then the draft regulation could actually make it even worse if that they pass it, because it's going to prevent, you know, single wind plant owners to join into a balancing group. Before you could do that, and then right now, unless it's under the same company, it's going to be hard to join to a balancing group to reduce your risk. So that's one of the problems. And the other big problem is the quality of the projects on the development stage and then the application stage. That's non-recourse providers usually, that's one of the most important items they look for. So one last point, and then I'm going to finish my presentation, is the block grid capacity. Remember, I was talking about 800 megawatt that's been freed up because they returned their licenses, and then there was like 5,400 megawatt under development. So the market design in Turkey is different than most of the European countries. What Europe does is usually, and that they have to grab the land package, they have to get their EIA certifications at some point, and then they have to collect a bunch of permits before they could actually, and they can do this at some point parallel to the grid capacity, acquisition of the grid capacity, and then they were granted the licenses to go ahead and build the projects. But in Turkey, we're trying to do it backwards, which kind of actually protects the investors, but it also creates problems for the market overall, because you give the licenses or the capacities. Right now we call it pre-licenses, but it's about the same thing, because whoever gets the pre-license, it actually occupies the capacity of the grid. You give the capacity to a company which doesn't even have any idea what's going to happen on the permitting process, because the lands we usually go for is public lands, and we don't know who else is developing what on those lands. So, and then once you start developing your projects, you figure out these risks, and then at some point, some of the projects just drops off because you cannot solve those problems. So what happens is, I mean, we've seen this since 2011, end of 2011, from the last tenders, then there's huge amount of capacity left over, and you can't do anything about it, and that's part of the problem actually the regulators are facing with right now. They're trying to clean up this mess, because initially they thought that everybody's going to be behaving and that they're going to build their projects, eliminate the risks, and all the capacity is going to be allocated. But it didn't turn out to be that way, because there's lots of hype in the market, lots of speculators trying to make quick bucks, flipping projects around and then just sell it. So makes it very hard for foreign investors trying to, like I said, plan ahead. And then for overall, when you look at the micro level, then the market is moving. That's why we can only put 500 megawatts in the market over the last 5-6 years. So, and hopefully maybe we have to look at our market design a little bit, tweak it a little bit, so that we prevent this grid blockage in the near future. That's my presentation. Hopefully, and take your questions if you have any. Thank you.
Teşekkürler Şener Bey. Ressam
We thank Mr. Şener. He talked about many things as an investor that investors may face in the market itself. We hope that our investors can make their precautions according to these experiences. We will talk about that at the end of the presentations. We will take if you have any questions. Well, we have a consultancy company here which makes international consultancy. This consulting company shall be helpful. Well, in these terms, we expect Ms. Tülay Kaya to enlighten us further. She is from N+1 Daruma. And actually having complaints, having criticism from foreign companies as well in the general situation of the market surprised us a bit. Well, Mr. Lai, can you summarize the past and future of the market? Okay, I won't make a presentation. I'll talk here.
Bu sektördeyim. I have been working in the consultancy sector regarding the mergings of the companies and financement, and also we have a special team for energy. We have some experiences in energy sector. Yatırımcı gözüyle diye Now we're talking about the perspective of investments, foreign investors. However, the bigger scale Turkish investors also look at the sector with the same perspective as the foreign investors. We won't talk about these topics in 5 years. I mean, in the next after 5 years, but we have been talking about wind and hydro plants for like 6 years, and it was a new area. Turkey was making steps in this new area, and the government declared that they wanted to help and make subsidies, and they put laws in force. And so we have been doing some things, and the world is going to this direction. We have to follow it too. We made some decisions, and we are going to create some capacities in different periods. But of course, it's not that easy because you're creating a system from scratch. There's a law. It had a really well intention, we can say, but the investors started to do their investments, and while they were trying to finance the projects, they saw some flaws, some shortages in this area, and the related institutions of this government also listened to the complaints and tried to make amendments on the law. So it's good to listen to the market and try to eliminate the shortages. But of course, you can't eliminate all shortages or problems. So we face some challenges. Why did a foreign investor came to Turkey regarding the wind? Why did they invest in wind? The capacity was zero. Like Mr. Engen talked about it. In Germany, 33,000 megawatts. We are talking about 30,000 megawatts. But in Turkey, we are talking about 3,000 something megawatts. So it is a very new market. In the developed countries, they are saturated. The markets are saturated. But in Turkey, there was a big potential. The capacity will be developed, and they could do big steps. But it was supported by the law. There wasn't a subsidy mechanism like in the developed countries, because when you look at Europe, the feed-in tariffs provided in in Europe were higher than the market. But in Turkey, you can't find that much subsidies, that much encouragement. But there were some laws, some supportive laws. They were a little comforting measurements. Mr. Engen also talked. There are some uncertain issues. What will the prices be like in 10 years? It's not certain, so the investor does not know the fixed return. So in other countries there are fixed feed-in tariffs for 20 years or 30 years, but in Turkey it's maybe only like 10 years. That's why the risk of investment in Turkey is higher than other countries, and it also it's the result of some political and economical factors. But when we disregard all these factors, there is again a problem about this tariff, feed-in tariff. The investors came. There are big actors in Turkey, and when the law passed, I remember the big actors were coming and analyzing, and some of them invested, and some of them decided to invest. They came, they established their units, and then they went back without making any investment. Some of them made investments, but then they quit. They changed their minds. So it means some companies can go with this system, but some can't, because everybody has different expectations and perceptions about risk and production. So the risk in Turkey is not acceptable for some investors, and the problems, because the system is new, had a big role in this, and the wind energy had difficulties in administrative aspects. In 3 or 4 years, we didn't have any results of the applications. So in Turkey, Turkish people, we are used to that. We can accept some risks. We can wait. It's okay for us. But for the foreign investors, they're not acceptable for their investment. So for the foreign investments, I think the administrative risk is the highest risk. I mean, what I mean with the administrative, it's not political, but it's the administration of the management of the sector. And the same things are being experienced right now, the cancellation of the projects and some various permits that are required, and some other, the fact that the wide range of permissions are needed for construction, and one institution gives permit and the other one doesn't give. This kind of problems deter for both foreign and also local, I mean Turkish investors, and some investors are fed up with those kind of risks, and this is the main issue of concern and complaints. While the foreign investors are coming into Turkey, the Turkish market, they usually want to have a local partner. Şener Bey's situation is different. They came and directly invested, but they have a team that have information about Turkey, so they usually prefer to have a Turkish partner to be able to deal with and tackle the problems in Turkey. For a foreign investor, it's not easy to deal with everything in Turkey, and also be in cooperation and also in communication with Ankara, the central government. This is one of the factors, important factors, affecting the investment in Turkey. The foreign investors, if they're a big actor and if they want to stay in the market for a long time, they want their Turkish partner to be in the same direction. So they should, I mean, the Turkish partner also needs to be an investor and having a good portfolio and ready to develop their portfolio. When they first came, there were only a few Turkish investors in the market, but it's the same, almost the same. I think still you can only say that we have maybe 10 investors with this criteria in Turkey. I mean, Turkish investors. So that's why the foreign investors are not very lucky in terms of finding the right partner. Mr. Shenar talked about the finance issues. Of course, it is important, but the foreign investors, when they are financing their own projects in their countries, they are used to a structure called project financing, and every project is under one SPV, and the budget of the SPV is used, and the holding company is not related to the issue, and they are used to this system. But the Turkish banking system has a different requirements regarding this finance issues. So they are unfamiliar with our system. In abroad, there are other systems that exist and that they don't exist in Turkey. There was a 120 megawatts of projects. We financed it in a European way, but it's not possible for every project. Like if an investor wants to finance a project including 10 megawatts, then it's too small. So you have to have at least maybe like 50 megawatts in your project. And there are also some technical requirements that the project needs to meet. And this is a process. Sometimes the foreigners are used to, but their Turkish partners might say this is too long and this takes 6 months, and then we have an agreement with this another bank, and let's go and have an agreement and just take it. They sometimes force their foreign partners, but when there's a foreign investor in a country, they go for the 9-course financement. But the first financing systems were not made in this way. Maybe that's why some of them went out of Turkish market. I know one company did that because they didn't like this system. And there's another issue. Engin Bey also talked about it. Turkish market is very competitive. I mean, Turkish wind market is very competitive. Everybody has a wind project. The wind actor also has a wind project. Energy investor has a wind project. A textile company has a wind project, and a hotel owner has a license for maybe 10 megawatts. So when a foreign investor comes and looks at the market, and everybody has done something for their project to develop their project, and when the investor comes, I remember a Spanish investor, and we were providing consultancy for them, and we looked for many projects. They were going to buy a project, but all the projects were developed such an amateur way, not professional way. They couldn't trust. There was only one company in Turkey applying the European standards and Turkish standards in their measurements, and it was the only company in Turkey who applied that standards. And it was a few years ago, so now the sector developed a little bit, but now I mean, the problem was they had to buy a project that was supposed to be a developed project, but they had to actually make it from scratch because it wasn't done properly. So the measurements are being done, and capacity factors are calculated, and they don't match with the previous calculations. And when the numbers don't match, the foreign investors can't trust. The Turkish investors actually now have changed in 5 years. When the foreign investors came, they brought their know-how with them, and they transferred their know-how a little bit to the Turkish sector. And I can realize it because a very inexperienced company can have a consultant to make the measurements. It wasn't like that 5 years ago. Everybody was trying to do everything on their own, and it was hard. And today, the investors are, I think, more lucky in this sense. Finally, I'd like to state, I mean, yes, we have passed really tough roads in energy sector so far, but in just like in every area, as a sector which is created from scratch, it's normal for that new sector to have these troubles. When the sector has troubles, the related institutions start taking measurements, and we will see the same thing maybe like 2, 3, 4 years later. We won't be talking about these kind of issues. Maybe our panels won't include this kind of issues. I hope so. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Tulay. I will give some information. There are some positive and negative issues. We also follow the negative things because we want to get some improvements, and we have been working on these. But before that, Furkan Bey, as the Investment Support and Promotion Agency of Turkey, what can you tell us and to the investors, foreign investors, what kind of a promotion program do they have? Can you give us some information about renewable energy? Why should we make investments? Why should we invest in renewable energy? And now Mr. Furkan will inform us about this issue.
Well, first, I want to give information about our institution. The name of it is Investment Support and Promotion Agency of Turkey. Its aim is to introduce Turkey's capacity and potential for the global investment projects. Apart from that, we specified 13 countries where we have our offices together with our international consultants. And together with all these works, we hope to draw the attention of international investors. We try to develop strategies for international investments, depending on each countries. We have sector teams who works on the prioritized sectors, among which energy. There's energy too. Well, then we try to specify the lacking parts and points of the sector, and we try to close this lacking gap, and we try to reach the related companies. We provide information to investors in our website. When we prepare reports for every sector, we had to prepare 2 reports for the energy sector. Well, we know that it has a negative effect on the current deficit at the moment. That's why we wanted to put emphasis on energy sector. So we have it, and we can share it with the ones who want to see these reports. Apart from that, in European market, the Turkish energy market is well known, but in other countries or other markets like the Gulf countries or China, Asian countries, and so on, the Turkish market is not well known. So we try to introduce ourselves, and this is a challenging duty. Actually, we've been talking about energy markets, the wind energy market. We've been discussing this, and there are still questions which are not clearly answered. And imagine that we are going to places, to countries which know nothing about Turkey, which do not have any information about the market. So this is quite challenging for us to introduce ourselves in other countries which are not familiar with Turkey, but thank God we have the support of the Ministry of Energy as well. Well, Turkey has a pre-2002 period and after post-2002 period in terms of drawing the attention of foreign investors. Together with the developed legislations, now it is over $140,000 actually. $2.5 billion of the total investments in Turkey are for energy, which is a good figure. In the first 6 months, the investment drawing has increased by 10% compared to last year. At the moment, we have over $1 billion investments in the sector. But of course, the amendments, the enhancements in the legislation, the steps taken by the related ministries and institutions, and the decisive approach of the government helped this process to develop in a better way. And there was a notification declared in which it states that the development, the enhancement in the market increases, and it is a good point for foreign investors as well. Well, let's skip to the energy point. The investors, what they look for when they invest in energy. First, as Mr. Engin and Mr. Şenay talked about, first they look at the growth trend of the market and its the growth of the market itself. Turkey is among the first 5 markets within Europe. And our GNP, compared to our GNP, we are developing, we are growing in a good rate. And at the moment, the figure that we're talking about in terms of capacity, if we can reach it, we may be third biggest market in Europe. East Europe, we are ranked after Polonia, but in the future days, we believe we can pass Poland and become #1. Again, when we ask the investors about what they look for, they look profit margin to be high. The political sustainability is an important point for them. Well, Turkey, which creates its liberalization, conducts its liberalization in parallel with this growth, economic growth. This is a positive thing for us. But together with the feedbacks of the private sector, we try to continue our path by making things better. This privatization, in terms of privatization, when the privatization is finished, it is important for the foreign investors because this is kind of a signal showing that Turkey kept its word. Well, we are talking about some specific targets for 2023. We talk about the figures, investment figures, what is needed and so on. But when we think about the current situation, foreign investors are needed, surely needed. In the recent 7 years, it is seen that the allocated money for energy is being 15,000 billion so far. Even the banks tried to make contributions to the project, but apart from that, there is the cash market, the money market, and it is assessed that there might be some risks. So the fundings in the corporate fundings may have some risks. We try to draw the attention of these fundings in our country. You know, Germany acquired a portfolio of a hydropower plant in Turkey. We have some other countries like Canada, which made purchase of certain company too. We would like to see these foreign investors number to be increased in Turkey. What is important here is the balance and the sustainability. When we look at the last 2 years in Europe, due to some costs in some countries, due to some end costs or the discounts in feed-in tariff, they draw back themselves at certain time. Well, if you are to compare other regions with Turkey, in terms, when we compare Turkey with Middle East, Turkey is more prominent. East Europe, when we compare Turkey with East Europe, they don't have a market as big as the Turkish market. When we speak with the investors, actually, we can see that there are problems of EIA or the grid connections and so on. But again, Turkey is among the most reachable markets within the region. Lastly, I want to talk about the local production, the domestic production. We give great importance to the domestic production. And it is really important for us to make the production locally, to make this energy production with local sources. How we can develop this? There are some studies, works done about that. There is this RETEC. There are R&D studies of companies, but again we think that investments are of great importance again, because if we are to give an example, the automotive sector is a great example before our eyes, because just like that sector, in the energy sector we can implement the same system maybe. We are having our discussions and meetings with related companies at the moment. And of course, this contribution margin also is a positive thing for the investors, and also the incentives by the government is a positive point for the investors, foreign investors. Well, making use of regional strategical incentives and making use of some certain discounts would be a good thing for foreign investors. These customs tariffs or discounts in VATs would be a positive thing for foreign investors. Another service that we put in front of our foreign investors, we do the related analysis. We go together with them to the field investigations. We help them to find a suitable field for the power plant, and we already have ongoing projects at the moment. Well, that was all I want to state. Thank you so much. We thank you, Mr. Furkan, for this nice speech. Well, before having the questions, I would like to make some additional remarks. Well, you know, in terms of harmonization to the EU, Turkey is quite determined. Whether it becomes a member or not, this is a question, but Turkey does everything to reach the European Union standards. And to have this as a benchmark is really important for our country, because when we see or they see a missing part in that compliance harmonization, we get the help of the related actors. The testing stages are finished, and production operations are at European Union level, European Union standard. Apart from that, the market or the Turkish energy market, it's being integrated in the process is important. And we believe all these works will make great contributions to the market and intra-investments. Apart from that, the privatization of the distribution companies and their transfers have been completed. At the moment, all the distribution companies belong to private sector. Apart from that, we had our electricity law, which was put into force last year. And together with all these amendments and enhancements, we try to do regulations which will enable a better path for foreign investors, which will protect them. Apart from that, in the strategic plan for renewable energy, we want to make certain amendments. The Spain, Germany examples, we try to get the best of them and to understand the problems, because they are among the most developed countries in this. I mean, in this sector, they are quite developed, and we want to learn from their mistakes, and we so that make amendments and developments which will enable us to have a more smooth process. This PPCs, Turkey is a bit behind the normal speed of them, I think. The wholesale purchase, in terms of wholesale purchase, we believe that these PPEs will make the process easier. Well, this high transaction cost was touched upon, you know, in the previous presentation, and the license fees are also drawing attention, but we need to increase the production capacity, and the transmission system. In terms of transmission process, we created a different 3,000 megawatt capacity. As we saw in other presentations, the target of 2020, the figure seems unreachable at the moment, but with this kind of additional capacities, we believe that we will reach that 2023 target. The fact that feed-in tariffs are high, and the fact that at the beginning of the project the feed-in tariff is not expected in a good way, that might harm the investors. And actually, in Turkey, when we look at the situation in Turkey, we have a sustainable and realizable feed-in tariff, I believe. At the moment, we can't see the capacities or the numbers of the energy capacity to be integrated in the current grid system. But in terms of renewable energy, if electrical cars are going to be launched, because at the moment we have a foreign dependency in terms of the fuel for the cars, if we can replace it with bio energy or with a renewable energy, that would be a great step for us. When we do this replacement, if we can make the local products to be used, then it would be even better. So that would increase the capacity of domestic spare part production, and when local domestic spare parts are used, that would be a contribution and positive aspect for the feed-in tariff as well. Well, when we try to use a stable standard tariff, selling electricity in the market would be better. In Turkey, there is a established and stable free market. Let me state that. There are principles for new actors. And in Turkey, we prioritize, give importance to these in our legislations as well. Well, compared to Europe, the prices in Europe are higher naturally, because the capacity usage factor there is like 20% or something, but in Turkey, this rate is about 35%. So the prices are a bit lower when we compare it to Europe. Another important factor, after 2020 in Turkey, well, we are talking about the electricity transmission from Turkey to Europe after 2020. At the moment, we have an active connection, we have active transaction with Europe, but after 2020, we will have quite big potentials, and we believe that Turkey will have a role in terms of renewable energy. Well, the geopolitical status, when we have, although we have some negative aspects, some risks, when we look at the situation from this perspective, in terms of conveying energy, transmitting energy to Europe, this geopolitical status becomes a positive aspect for us. Well, that was all of this session. Please, you are more than welcome to ask any questions if you have one. I would like to thank our panelists first for being here, and I would like to thank them for being sustainable. If you have any questions, please, you can ask.
My name is Zubair. 4 questions. First question goes for Engin Aslan. Do you think 2023 target is achievable target? And if it is, what do you think is required to do? I have four different questions. And so the other question goes for, Şenel Özgül. And during your presentation, it was mentioned that you canceled some of your projects because of geopolitical risk. Can you mention us about those projects? I'm just trying to understand which projects they were, which has potential. And so, third question goes for Tülay Kaya. And konuşmanızdan anladığım kadarıyla
As long as I can understand from your presentation, you are in the sector and you know what is going on in the sector. Is the target for 2020 is achievable? And my fourth question goes to Furkan Kaya, and what was considered while 2023 aim target was being done? Because two of our speakers said it is very hard, so I hope it goes well.
Already mentioned in my presentation that the target for 2023 is most likely not possible. If I would knew how to solve it, how to reach this targets, maybe I would be the master of the sector. I have no clue. We have some hints, of course. Make it easy to get new projects we are willing to realize. We have an ambitious target, 1,500. All the other energy companies have also high targets, so the willingness is there, but you need the projects, you need the licenses. So I would say make it easier to get the licenses, then it is achievable. And Shanalbe mentioned also in his presentation, we need 1,900 per year. So I think this shows that it is hardly imaginable at the moment.
In terms of the geopolitical risk projects we had, they're mainly solar projects, and probably been reading the news. When you look at southeast Turkey, there's like a freeway right there. Right now, the Peshmergas are moving in through Turkey and going to those locations. So it's very hard to convince the shareholders to put any mass, let alone sending any people over there. And then a couple of our applications, we had to get a special security report from independent companies to be able to even erect some masts. So that's what it is right now. We're hoping that's going to be resolved shortly, but we try not to touch those areas right now.
Bence ortamda yabancı.
I think there isn't any foreigner here. I will go on in Turkish. I don't think the 2023 aim is reachable, achievable, and I agree. You asked why was the 2023 targets were made this way. While we had these aims, one of our target was to have a vision for Turkey, and another reason was the growth rate in Turkey was 9%, and we were the second runner after China in terms of growth rate. So that's why we had this aim, but we are talking about 2 trillions of GDP and to reach this target. But at that time, the Turkey was growing at a very high pace, but with this global changes, our growth rate dropped. So that's why it doesn't look possible for now. But while the aims were prepared, the growth rate of Turkey was really high, and we know that Turkey has the potential, and all institutions are doing their best to achieve that. I would like to talk in behalf of the Ministry of Energy. The aims are really high. They are really hard aims, but we are doing our best as the ministry to accomplish this aim. It's not only our ministry. We are in cooperation with other ministries too to support to eliminate the flaws and shortages. We have been working on them, and in the upcoming months we will try to clarify things for our investors, and we also will do that in cooperation with our investors as well, and it will become like a guide or a guideline for investment in Turkey. And it looks like our aim for 2023 is not possible to reach, but with all the changes that we are trying to make, we are trying to improve the investment environment, and we are trying to develop the capacity as much as possible so that we can reach our target. Yes, it's hard. It's really hard, but the state, the government, and the public institutions are doing their best to accomplish that. And last year, the electricity law changed. It was expected to change for a long time, but it was changed only. It was amended only last year, and some issues are um, dealt with from a different perspective, and that's why the investment trend is foreseen to increase. There will be an increasing trend. It's being expected, and so we are still hopeful. We didn't lose our hope totally, and we are doing our best. So 20,000 aim is still realistic for us for now. Do you have any other questions? I think no one wants to ask any more questions. Thank you very much for your participation. And thank you to all our panelists for your participation and the good information you gave us. You actually eliminated many question marks. And the tables showed the advantages and disadvantages, and also the comparison between Germany and Turkey was very effective. So I'd like to thank all our panelists and participants again for their participation. And now we'd like to give some the appreciation plates to the panelists.